Infinite Mana in the Apocalypse. Chapter 1 Awaken. I was looking at a glistening book on the table, a skill book, albeit a very low-ranked one at that. Fireball, an F-ranked spell that only the most unfortunate beginners start with. But this skill book took a majority of my remaining inheritance, and all of my savings. I was known to be a fairly smart guy before everything went to shit, so I planned ahead before spending most of my money. In the worst-case scenario, I still have enough funds to last me at least a few months. In the best-case scenario, as planned, I would consume this skill book and hope for a semi-decent talent when I awaken. Getting this skill book was not easy, but it was the only way to awaken if you did not awaken naturally. The rich had no problem awakening themselves, their children, and their children's children. I look at the skill book again before stealing my resolve and picking it up. Bringing it close to my chest, I close my eyes. A few seconds pass before I see a flash of light, even though my eyes are closed. Opening them, the book in my hands had disappeared, and at the corner of my eyes something else had appeared. Noah. Vitality, 10. Focus. Strength, 10. Skills. Fireball. Shining with blue light. The words brought confusion more than relief to me. Where the hell were the numbers for focus? From the released knowledge, ever since the apocalyptic event that killed more than 1 billion people occurred, a new magical world took its place. People that are termed as awakened appeared, and others could also become awakened through learning skill book that can be dropped from killed monsters. Yes, monsters. Magical beings that most commonly reside in dungeons, and occasionally come out whenever a dungeon break occurs. Since more than a year has passed, it became common knowledge that those who are awakened are able to use skills, whether inherently gained or from skill books, to perform amazing feats and vanquish monsters. These awakened beings can increase their strength by killing more monsters and absorbing the life cores they drop, which add to the 3 attributes: vitality, focus, and strength. Sigh. So why the F? U. C. K is my focus empty? I try not to become depressed as I feel my body change somewhat after I awakened. I seem to have become slightly stronger, and can instinctively cast the skill I just learned. The problem is, can I even cast skills if I don't have any focus? Why the hell is there no number though? My exhilaration of awakening was slowly fading away as I couldn't figure out the numbers, or lack of thereof, on the blue screen in front of me. Looking back, nothing like this seems to come to mind from the news and everything I have been paying close attention to. Sigh, I'll have to figure it out as I go. Vitality and strength are average, and focus, what is required to cast skills and increase the damage you do, is black. Can I even cast Fireball if I don't even know how much focus I have? Usually, most average awakenees can cast F-tier skills 5 times before they completely deplete the energy in their body. The larger your focus, the higher tier the skills you can cast and the more times you can cast them. Since awakened mages are extremely powerful, focus cores are much more in demand than vitality cores and strength cores. Awakened mages can shoot their skills at a long distance and not even give the monsters a chance to retaliate, while awakened berserkers and awakened knights have to get up close to fight. I was hoping to awaken to become a mage. Sigh, without wallowing in melancholic thoughts anymore, I try the last Hail Mary the first can, actually casting the skill I just learned. Fireball, a common F-rank skill that many F-ranked awakened have. I step out of my small apartment and head to an empty barren field behind the apartment complex freewebnovel.com. Rent had become increasingly more expensive nowadays, as buildings that had high security where you won't suddenly lose your life were high-priced. I had to move quite a distance to get to the barren field before I could begin testing my first skill, and possibly my last. Hyping myself up, I raise my hand in front of me and call out, Fireball. A small ball of flames came to light in front of me, much to my shock and disbelief. Along with the shock came exhilaration. I can still cast skills even though my focus bar doesn't show anything. Putting my shock aside, I command the fireball to move forward before it exploded a few meters from me. Wanting to test to see if I can at least cast the average 5 fireballs that normal F-ranked awakened can cast, I keep on going. Fireball. 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 3 more fireballs were shot and exploded in front of me, increasing the shock and happiness in my heart. At least I have average skills, even if it doesn't show on the stat panel. Weirdly enough, I did not feel any less energy in my body. Well, my focus was blank, to begin with, so I didn't really feel much. I focus once more as I cast what is probably my last fireball until I rest for a while before I can cast again. Fireball. The fifth fireball flew out and exploded just like the ones before. With a smile on my face, I wiped the perspiration on my forehead while feeling relieved. Being average is not bad, at least with this, I can count myself among the top of many people in the world today. I was still confused on the fact that no numbers were showing on my focus though, which meant I couldn't get a gauge on just how much energy I had and how many times I could cast my skill. I hesitantly raised my hand again to see just how many times I could cast Fireball. 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 The more times I cast the skill and more fireballs flew and exploded in front of me, the more shocked I became. Fireball. The shock soon turned into incredulousness, as I had counted more than 50 fireballs flying from me and exploding. This, 10 times the normal amount of energy an average F rank has. I try to breathe to calm myself down. 10 times. That means my energy nears rank D awakened. That was extremely rare, as long-distance awakened with skills like fireballs can easily take down an F-rank monster, and 3 to 4 fireballs or equivalent skills can take care of E-ranked monsters. D-ranked awakened individuals also triumph over D-ranked monsters fairly easily with good usage of their skills. Am I actually one of the talented Awakanis? I try to push down the pride that began rising before calling out another fireball, because I still didn't feel like I was out of energy. This both scared me and made me extremely hopeful in the future. When I kept casting the skill, I didn't really feel any energy leaving, nor did I feel exhausted. When I reached 100 casts, my shock increased. When it reached 300, my head was pounding from this unknown situation. When it reached 500 casts, my whole body shook. I breathed heavily before looking around me. I was fairly deep into the barren field and had the cover of trees behind me. Glancing around and making sure there was nobody around me, I rushed back to my apartment to try and calm my nearly exploding heart. 500 times I had cast an F-ranked skill, and I didn't feel any exhaustion. What exactly was going on? Chapter 2 Hunter License. As soon as I was back in my apartment, I took deep breaths and analyzed everything that had happened so far. No numbers were showing for my focus, something I have never heard about before. Yet, I could still cast skills that require focus. I did not feel any exhaustion while casting F-ranked skill over 500 times. My goodness. Taking another deep breath, I continued thinking. The most important question now is, do I just have an abnormal amount of focus that surpasses most people, or something else? This was the biggest thing on my mind, as even the strongest B-ranked awakened individuals cannot cast skills that many times without exhausting themselves. Alright, with that in mind, I need to test just how many times I can continue to cast skills before I can't anymore. Which also means I need to get my hands on higher ranked skills that consume more energy. With that in mind, a smile bloomed on my face. Just the fact that I could cast an F-ranked skill more than 500 times meant amazing things. As long as I am not brain dead, I can easily clear an F and E-ranked dungeons, even if I'm alone. D-ranked dungeons might be a stretch, as the strength of monsters increase and I would need higher ranked skills besides Fireball to take them down. But there's no problem taking things slow. I pull out my phone and look at the remaining balance in my bank account. $5,867. Enough money for rent and food for a few months, and the remainder of my savings. I convinced myself to buy the F-ranked skill book, Fireball, for $20,000. After this, most of my inheritance money was now gone. A year ago, when the apocalypse began, my parents were not so lucky to survive. I was stuck in the nt of my old house asleep and escaped the onslaught of monsters that were taken care of by the government and newly awakened people after a few days. As time passed, more information was released to the public. Monsters had appeared. Most of them congregated in dungeons. If they were left alone, they would increase and something called dungeon break would occur. This caused monsters to leave the dungeon and indiscriminately attack everything on sight. But never fear, awakened people are here, able to use powerful skills and great strength to protect everyone else. And now, I was among those people too. The first order of business. Obtain an awakened license that will allow me to enter dungeons. Without a license, you cannot bypass the security that allows the awakened to clear dungeons. You can get a license fairly easily, as you just have to be examined and exhibit skills. I was itching to get started as soon as possible, so I grabbed my backpack and rushed downtown. With the advent of monsters and heroes, many of the populations were condensed onto a few protected cities. Almost everything was close to each other, so the awakened center was not too far away. A few minutes and I was already there. On the way, I saw the usual people with sullen faces and occasional awakened individuals rushing about. The awakened center was vibrating with life, as long lines of people visiting shops could be seen, with even more carefully selling monster cores to the authorities. Many people chose to first consume the cores and get stronger themselves, but many more also sold them to the government and other markets as they went for high prices. Vitality Core S and Strength Core S went for around $1,000, while Focus Cores were almost double that price because of their demand. I moved my eyes to another section of the center, which was dealing in the selling of skill books ranging from F to C. Obtaining a C-ranked skill book was a dream for many people, as they were extremely rare and went for more than $500,000. Looking at the skill books that I greatly desired, I shook my head and moved towards the registration hall. The receptionist was very welcoming, asking for my name, date of birth, address, and bank account information. As soon as she had everything down, I was told to head toward a certain door where my ability would be observed. There were 3 people standing behind thick glass in an open area with testing dummies. After hearing the directions, I stood a few meters from the dummies and cast Fireball consecutively 8 times, making sure to look like I was struggling to get the last few out. Wow. Judge 1. A peak F rank huh. Judge 2. Drawing a few surprises from the observers behind the thick glass, everything was completed successfully and I received my license. It was a golden card similar to a credit card with my name, age, and rank. The surprise from the observers was most likely due to the fact that high-ranked awakened are extremely rare, with there being only one B-ranked awakened in this city that is known publicly. There are a few tens of C-ranked awakened, a few hundred D ranks, and thousands of E and F ranks. Most of the hunters were F ranked, so being at the peak of this rank at the starting point was a good thing by itself. One can slowly raise their rank by absorbing Core S, but unless you were in the army where they were provided for you by the government or in a rich household that could buy them en masse, you would rise very slowly. There were some slight changes to the panel on the corner of my eyes as I walked out of the Awakened Center and received my license. Noah, Occupation, Hunter. Vitality, 10. Focus. Strength, 10. Skills. Fireball 8. A new occupation had appeared, marking me as an official Awakened Hunter, and... oh. I was surprised because I didn't see it before, but the proficiency of the Fireball skill had quickly risen to 8. That was an extremely fast process when it took people weeks to raise their proficiency with their skill. I guess it is understandable as I was able to cast the skill more than 500 times, and most people have to use their skills over a period of weeks to reach that number. My next course of action after getting my license was the nearest beginner dungeon in this city, Ape's Paradise. Boasting 10 floors, each floor held 10 to 20 monsters, with the last floor housing a huge black ape 3 meters in size. This dungeon was regularly cleared by parties of F and E ranked hunters, who could take on the monsters and the boss without fear of casualties if everyone was doing their jobs. Parties consisting of 2 knights who put their focus on their vitality, 2 berserkers with their focus on strength, and 2 mages with their focus on focus, were the most common for this dungeon. The knights act as tanks to ward off coming monsters. Berserkers use their high strength to strike down and protect the mages that are the brunt of the firepower to kill everything on sight. Equipment from dungeons was extremely rare, so most people had to make do with newly designed machetes or metal pipes and iron shields as their first equipment. Only the boss of the dungeon had a chance to drop skill book, S and items. Any item dropped from a dungeon was highly sought after, with their prices not being too different from the skill book S. My goal today was to enter Ape's Paradise, and alone at that. My heart was pounding at this crazy idea. When the thought was forming in my head, I had to ask myself multiple times if I had gone insane. But it will not be that dangerous. Seeing how I can cast my skills so many times without feeling any fatigue, the rank of my focus, even though I can't F. U. C. K. I. N. G see it for some reason, should be nearing B if not A. And any rank B hunter can easily clear rank F and E dungeons, though they don't care to, and put their focus on higher ranked dungeons. Now, with me being the only F-ranked hunter entering and clearing this dungeon, my heart was pounding from the possible rewards. Usually, rewards are split between the many members of the party, but I would keep all the core S and possible skill book S and item S that drop. Just the thought of it made my heart excited. I steeled my resolve and heading towards Ape's Paradise. Chapter 3: Ape's Paradise. A huge monolith structure was surrounded by high walls. There was security at the entrance and heavily armed soldiers on the walls. Even though this was only an F-ranked dungeon, it made up for millions of dollars of revenue every day with a large number of people entering, clearing the monsters, and selling the resources they receive inside. This monolith had a blue color, indicating it was a normal dungeon with little danger of a dungeon break. If the color changed to orange and then to red, it meant a dungeon break was imminent. Regularly clearing the dungeon kept the color at blue, turning it into a treasure trove with capable people farming it. You always had casualties every now and then from hunters that were either too full of themselves, bad teammates, or just plain unlucky. Now, I sincerely hope I don't make myself on the category of being too full of myself. Gathering my wits, I show the guards at the metal entrance of the enclosure my hunter ID before heading in. Inside the walls, there were a few hunter teams getting their gear in order or just talking. A few people were standing around looking to either form parties or invite others to their party. At the center of the blue monolith, there was a square, door-like structure. This door-like structure was how you entered the dungeon. Those in a group would have to touch the door with a few second differences, but under a minute, to be transferred to the first floor of the dungeon together. There was a party prepared to go into the dungeon in front of me already, so I reined in my curiosity about the other hunters around me and stood a few feet away from the ingoing party. It didn't take long before a few hunters noticed a lone man waiting by himself. Oi, is that kid thinking of going in alone? Hunter A. Bro, another one with a death wish. Hunter B. Just ignore him, who knows, maybe he's one of those prodigies that can solo an F-rank dungeon. Haha, Hunter C. Ignoring the laughs around me, I wait patiently as the entire party in front of me disappeared in a flash, and waited the required minute before going forward and placing my hand on the square door. In an instant, I was transported into a large cavern, where I had just caught the attention of two 1-meter-tall black apes. I brought myself to full attention and observed both the apes and my surrounding before I began my first dungeon hunt. Fireball. A single fireball, and then a second, and a third, and a fourth quickly flew towards the two apes. When the ball of fire exploded on their faces, they were already incapacitated and letting out dying screeches. They would not survive after that, and a second fireball hit them at the same location, quickly finishing them off. I breathed heavily as I felt the adrenaline course through my body. Two F-rank monsters, easily taken care of by me. Haha, this was a feeling I could get used to. Usually, F-rank hunters would use their skills sparingly, making sure to cast them all either on the boss or on emergencies. I did not have such reservations. I went towards where the apes fell and grabbed a glistening, strength core that dropped. It was small in size, smaller than a pigeon's egg, and yet they went for $1,000 on the market. I placed the core into my backpack and ventured farther in. I didn't have to walk far, as three apes were quickly rushing towards me screeching after hearing the death screams of their brethren. With a thought, fireball was cast one after another, each not missing its targets that were rushing forward. Another strength core dropped from these three. Core S were not guaranteed to drop every time a monster died, and getting 2 from 5 monsters was already fairly average. Placing the newly acquired Core S in the bag, I rushed down the path of the cavern, meeting another set of 5 apes that I quickly burned. I had to force myself to calm down as I so easily and quickly took down the monsters and collected Core S. I never imagined myself being able to do something like this and had to pinch myself a few times just to make sure it wasn't a dream. Forcing myself to remain calmer, I cleared the first floor quickly and headed down the winding steps to the second floor. The apes came in batches of 3 to 5, and just ran towards me when I neared. I didn't let them get any closer than 4 meters from me, hurling balls of fire towards them as soon as they were in my sight. And just like that, an incredulous sight occurred in the F-ranked dungeon, Ape's Paradise. Without a moment of rest, an F-ranked hunter cleared the second floor, and the third, and the fifth, all the way to the end of the 9th floor with ease. Wah! I lost control of my emotions as I let out a triumphant shout before the boss room. I had never imagined something like this to be possible. Without a single issue, I had effectively taken down groups of apes, collected multiple Core S, and reached the boss room all by myself. I reeled my emotions in as I let out a confident smile, and went further down to the boss room. A huge ape awaits me in the circular cave that is the last room. Roar! The cave lightly shakes from the scream. My smile does not leave my face as 5 fireballs fly towards the ape that is now charging towards me. The first hit its chest, stopping it on its tracks. The second and third smash its shoulders, knocking it backward. The fourth and fifth explode on either side of its head, effectively finishing it off. As soon as the ape crashed down, a blinding light flashed in the last floor and a green crystal rose in the middle. Touching this crystal will allow you to leave the room and appear at a random location near the entrance of the dungeon. I slowly revel in my first ever completed dungeon hunt, a solo one at that. I then go towards the now dead ape to see any possible drops. By its side, a few F-rank Core S are present, along with a skill book. I grab the Core S and put them inside the bag, before reaching out for the skill book. Minor Heal was now in my hands, giving me quite a shock. It wasn't the rarest of F-rank skill books, but it was one of the more expensive ones as it easily took care of any cuts and minor injuries. I also placed the skill inside the bag and proceeded to sit down and think while staring at the green crystal in front of me. The problem at hand is how I should handle myself from now on. An F-rank newly awakened hunter clearing an F-rank dungeon in under 30 minutes was unbelievable. It would have to be someone who was B-ranked or above to be able to carry out the same thing. I made sure not to show too much of what I could do when I took the licensing exam because currently, all I have going for me is the fact that I seem to have a large pool of energy to cast skills. This does not mean I am powerful, nor do I hold the power of someone rank B or higher. Even a rank D or C could easily sneak behind me and take me out as long as they're faster than me. So my plan was to stay low-key until I could buy more skills, preferably higher ranking ones that would match my large energy reserves. Sigh, and that required money. Another plan was forming in my head though. Looking over at the gains just from clearing Ape's Paradise once, I had in total 1 F-rank, skill book, and 40 plus Core S from the more than 160 apes I had killed from the 9 floors before. This alone made me bolder to make some accelerated plans. Just from one dungeon run alone, I can make more than $60,000. In under 30 minutes. This alone gave me a great shock. Normal parties would have to split the loot, and it would take them more than 2 hours of intensely fighting monsters in close combat, which brought them exhaustion and made many parties recuperate for a few hours after each dungeon run. freewebnovel.com. Most parties would go into the dungeon once or twice a day. With each person making around $10,000, the life of a hunter can be considered very luxurious. So, assuming the boss drops either a skill book or possibly an item, I can make around 60 grand each run. This made many ideas dance around in my head wildly. I've already spent many months observing hunters and researching every knowledge available to the public about them. I've researched even more into all the known skill book S and item S that can be dropped from boss rooms. For someone with a large energy pool like me, I already had a few books in mind that would work very well. Of course, I also have to keep on testing just how much focus I really have. A wild thought keeps appearing in my head that I do not want to entertain as it is too grand. The possibility that because my focus appears blank, and I can repeatedly continue to cast skills with no feeling of exhaustion, could mean that I can simply keep on casting skills as much as I want. Boom. It felt like something had exploded in my head as this idea came and my mind entertained it more and more. My heart was also beating fast that this could even be a possibility. But, why not? From what I've seen so far, there is no value for my focus attribute. Is it more logical to think that it is just a really high number that I somehow cannot see, or that because it is blank and I can still cast skills, I can simply continue to cast skills without any problem of depleting something? I took a deep breath to calm my nerves before I came to terms with a new plan. It was somewhat risky, but it will be fast and reduce any possible future problems, whether it be from monsters or hunters. The world after the apocalypse was vastly different, but still the same. Now even more filled with dangers and deaths. A hunter could easily be killed by monsters, robbed by other hunters, or killed by the government if they do not fall in line. To secure my safety while rising up, I will need a highly defensive and offensive skill, and well as a speed supporting skill. Something of C rank or above would be highly effective, and yet the cheapest C rank skills start off at $500,000. So, how do I go about this? Chapter 4 is that a rookie, or an idea solidly formed in my head and took root. I knew what I had to do. I didn't want to cause too huge of a commotion, so even though I will have to go in a roundabout way, I can still keep on diving into dungeons today. The plan was to head to another dungeon after leaving Ape's Paradise. As much as I wanted to enter the dungeon again, I know I would easily be recognized the moment I head towards the entrance again. I won't repeatedly dive into dungeons with such a fast clear speed until I have some measure of confidence to be able to protect myself from most threats. The goal for now is power close to or equivalent to rank B. There was a single B rank hunter in this city, and he was a known celebrity. The strength he showed made many people fearful, as even bullets and snipers were ineffective against someone of rank B. The city I'm in though, Outer Bank X, was only a small-sized city with a few dungeons, the highest rank being C. Other cities that are further inland have way more powerful hunters with even greater level dungeons. My next stop will be at the rank E dungeon, Frozen Wasteland, which many hunters did not frequent. With the extremely cold characteristics, this dungeon held 20 floors, with various beasts of cold attributes appearing. It should be even easier to clear with my constant casting of Fireball. Before I head to the Frozen Wasteland though, I do want to continue testing just how many more times I can cast my soul skill at the moment, Fireball. From the previous 500 times, I've cast it 200 plus times while clearing this dungeon. Wrapping my thoughts up, I moved a distance away from the green crystal and began my experimentation of whether I could endlessly cast skills or if I just had an abnormal amount of focus that I could not see. Thus, a weird scene unfolded on the last floor of Ape's Paradise, with a man all by himself continuously casting fireballs. They exploded a few meters from him, and more followed right after. 20 minutes passed. I was still casting fireball without stopping, causing my wildly beating heart to be leaning towards that insane idea. Approximately over 1,000 casts in the last 20 minutes. Let's continue some more. 40 minutes later, I had gone past the excitement, ran over fear, got over the whole ridiculous idea, and taken it as a fact. This was something out of my wildest dreams, and I did not even understand how it could be possible. In the last hour, I had cast an F rank skill, Fireball, over 3,000 times. Not even someone of rank A, or the highest known ranking hunter, Steel Mikhail, would be able to do something like this. This both scared me and gave me a wild hope to someday stand up not far from them. Over the span of the time, the balls of fire that came out gradually became more condensed, and their explosions more pronounced as well as traveling much faster. In the last 10 minutes, instead of usually casting one fireball every second, 2 rushed out per second. They were apparently becoming smaller, faster, and more explosive as I continued to cast them. This should be my proficiency rising at a stupid crazy rate because of how many times I am casting the skill. My current panel looked like this. Noah, Occupation, Hunter. Vitality, 10. Focus. Strength, 10. Skills. Fireball -59. The proficiency for the skill Fireball had amazingly risen all the way to 59, a crazy figure to wrap my head around. As far as I knew, there were very few people who had their proficiency higher than 30, as hunters continuously improved themselves and got higher ranking skills with the passing of time. An F-rank hunter using Fireball as their first skill would move on to using an E-ranking skill as soon as they gained the funds to buy one. No one spent that much time using one of the lowest ranking skills for an extended period of time. Looking at the high proficiency, it made me excited about what would happen if I continue to cast and raise it even more. The power of the Fireball skill should currently surpass any other skills of the next rank in the damage and speed that it flies at. It's most likely nearing rank D in its offensive ability. I was itching to continue my test of endless casting but brought myself to stop and move on to the plans on my agenda. I moved towards the still glowing green crystal in the middle of the room and placed my hand on it, which instantly teleported me outside the monolith. I appeared not too far from the entrance, with a few people glancing my way with surprised expressions. Did his entire team wipe, or do we have a ranker here? Hunter F. Ha, a ranker. Have you ever seen them dressed like that with a flimsy backpack on them? My apologies, kid. I hope they weren't your closest friends. Hunter G. A few people noticed the abnormalities as someone finished the dungeon and was transported out alone. My current attire really did not match anyone of rank C or higher, as many people quickly noticed. Most of the people that were there an hour and a half ago when I went in the dungeon were either gone or not paying attention, as the surrounding compound of the dungeon was a fairly large space. I ignored the pitying gazes of hunters who thought the rest of my team was gone and headed towards the gate. Funny enough, I was becoming more and more used of ignoring other people's gazes as this day went on. Outside the gate, there were a few stalls and people rushing about. I went towards another section where there were a few cars lined up and planned to use the hunter ride system. There were many people making their living driving hunters from dungeons to the Awakened Center or to their lodging. It was a very dangerous job as you can always have an unstable customer, but this time they're superpowered people who could either blow you up or snap your neck with a twist of their hands. One man quickly came up to me with a smiling expression and asked if I needed a ride. I nodded and quickly got on the parked Dodge Charger in front of me, our destination, the frozen wasteland. In the 25-minute trip towards the next dungeon, I kept on thinking of any things that I missed and went over my plans for the next few days. Time quickly passed and we neared another huge monolith, this one with a slight tinge of orange. Many hunters did not like clearing this dungeon because of the extreme cold, resulting in mandatory clean-up by the government routinely. I would take my time in this dungeon though, as there were significantly fewer hunters, and even a single run would probably net me more than double the money I made in Ape's Paradise. I paid the high fare and got out of the car, flashing my hunter license to the guards at the door, who didn't bother with me after giving me a second look and shaking their heads. Hey, I promise you I'm not just a hunter on a suicide mission, alright. I look around the enclosure of this dungeon and head towards the entrance. There wasn't even a team on standby to be entering. With a few hunters CL.U.S. teared on some stalls and shops selling food and equipment. Nothing held me back as I quickly went to the entrance and placed my hand on one of the square doors, which quickly transported me to the first floor of the rank E dungeon, Frozen Wasteland. I was quickly besieged by the cold that drove many hunters away, and quickly cast 2 fireballs that did not fly away from me this time but circled around me. Doing this usually required hunters to continuously provide more energy, but nothing like that could be felt from me. As soon as I commanded the fireballs to circle a few feet away from me, the cold was majorly offset and nowhere near where it was before. There wasn't a pause to be given though, as I soon heard the growling of animals that quickly showed themselves. Clear white wolves were rushing towards me, their glistening white teeth flashing menacingly in the white wasteland. There wasn't a single hint of fear in me though, as I moved forward confidently. Condensed fireballs were quickly rushing from me at high speeds, exploding on the wolves' bodies and blowing masses of meat away. The group was quickly taken care of in the first volley of fireballs, and all that was left for me was to pick up the core that dropped. I looked forward to the misty cold path in front of me as I rushed down this 20-floor dungeon that would be the beginning of my journey. Chapter 5: How many fireballs to take down a huge polar bear. In the first 5 floors of the frozen wasteland, packs of white wolves appeared. With the fast velocity of the ever so damaging fireballs, they were mowed down quickly. Aside from casting the skill towards the enemies that appeared, I had a few of them rotating around me, and randomly cast the skill even more as I moved forward, even if there were no enemies near me. I wanted to increase the proficiency of Fireball as fast as possible. I could only imagine what these monsters felt, as they would hear sounds of an explosion that quickly pulled them toward me before they met a grisly fate. Killing all of these monsters did not have that much of an effect on me. I was looking at them like the mere monsters that they were. They would not hesitate a second to rip my head off if I gave them the chance. Not to mention the hatred that everyone has against monsters for all the massacres on the early stage of the apocalypse. The first 5 floors were quickly cleared, and from the 6th floor, monsters with a similar shape to foxes began appearing. These ones much bigger than the wolves before them. Their size surprisingly did not make them any slower, and they were rushing towards me while ferociously growling. The further condensed fireballs were shooting out from me without stopping. I was doing my best to adjust to the ever so increasing speed while aiming for their heads and limbs. As soon as there was an impact, an explosion followed and chunks of meat flew. The Arctic foxes were then taken down just as easily as the wolves. This continued until the 15th floor, where huge musk ox began appearing. They looked like huge bisons, but with a lot more fur. I stopped aiming at their limbs, as it seemed their thick coating provided some protection for them, and focused on throwing the fireballs only at their heads. At the speed they were rushing towards me, I actually had to move back to avoid being rammed into whenever I ran into a group of 4 or 5 musk ox. They required more fireballs to be taken down, and if there were many of them, then at least one would be able to get within a few meters. This pushed down my ever so increasing confidence a bit, making me slow down and stop my incessant casting that caused explosive sounds that alerted the monsters when I neared. As soon as I met another group, I cast as many fireballs as I could and kept them around me without losing my focus, before bombarding the group when I neared. Just like that, I smoothly cleared all the way until the 20th floor, which held crystal glass stairs heading downwards. I took a deep breath and prepared myself, casting the maximum fireballs I could keep circling me before I lost control and they exploded, which was about 10. Any more than that and I would lose concentration of a few that would fly away and explode. I went down the stairs and was met with a wide cave that had cold winds rushing about. At the center was a huge slumbering mass of a beast. As soon as I stepped in, 2 bright shining eyes opened, giving me a shock. This was the first ever monster that actually made me feel somewhat suffocated, mostly due to its size. I didn't waste any more time before commanding the fireballs around me to rush towards the huge beast, which was now standing on its hind legs. Damn! All 10 fireballs rushed towards it, with a few more appearing around me a few seconds after. The beast that seemed like a huge polar bear crossed its thick arms around its face as the fireballs came and a huge explosion occurred. Boom! Dust filled the room, but I didn't even bother waiting and checking if it was still alive or not before I threw the next 10 fireballs in the same direction. Whoosh! I let out a scream as I quickly moved back. The bear was not dead and had rushed a few meters close to me, its arms mangled and burnt, but its huge jaws with pristine white teeth wide open. The last 10 fireballs I had haphazardly thrown out saved my life, as they quickly exploded on the open jaws of the bear and blasted its head off. Damn! 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 I was breathing heavily while calming myself down. That was close. If I had waited a single second. If I was just a tad bit more overconfident, I would have had my head chewed right off. Damn it. Throwing those last fireballs without checking for anything just saved my life. I stumbled down and reeled my emotions in as the dust cleared and the room returned to serenity. I closed my eyes as the events in the last few minutes played in my head. I was rushing things. I only had one F rank skill, and I alone attacked an E rank dungeon. Stupid. It doesn't matter that I can cast it repeatedly if it cannot quickly take down huge bosses like this. Even with the increased proficiency of Fireball, it wasn't enough for me to comfortably take down a rank E boss. I also did not absorb any of the core S I had collected so far because I planned on selling all of them to quickly buy a higher tier skill book. Also stupid. If I absorbed some Strength Core S, my muscles would be reinforced and I would be stronger and quicker. If I absorbed more Vitality Core S, my defenses and health would be further increased so that a single attack won't kill me. I took a deep breath as these ideas flowed in. Okay, no need to rush. Plan ahead carefully first. My original plan was to dive into these dungeons repeatedly today until I gained enough money to purchase a C rank skill, but that might not be the smartest of ideas. I would need to repeat Frozen Wasteland at least 3 or 4 times alone if I wanted to collect funds nearing $500,000. Ape's Paradise alone had given me materials worth around $60,000, and I had gained close to a double that amount in here, with 100 Core S in the last 20 floors of this dungeon. A new plan quickly formed and I stood up to check what the boss had dropped. One skill book, and a few rank E Core S that were slightly bigger than a pigeon's egg. The skill book I picked up was called Arctic Armor. Happiness quickly came to my face as this was one of the categories of skills I was planning to buy. Skills like these greatly complement the current me, as some armor skills are timed, and some stay as long as you provide the energy. Tanks usually cast this skill when fighting against bosses, granting them another layer of increased protection. If the tank doesn't have a high enough focus though, he might run out of energy for the armor and quickly be taken out, so his team members had to act fast to kill the boss. Arctic Armor would stay active as long as you provided the energy for the skill. I wasted no time learning it and quickly activating it. A thin crystal layer of ice quickly formed all over my body, giving me a cooling feeling. Almost all of the cold winds that were rushing about in the cave seemed like a breeze to me. Wow, I was already in love with this new skill. As usual, I didn't feel like I was using any energy or depleting anything from my body as the skill was actively on. A confident smile quickly came back to my face as I collected the rest of the Core S and placed in my now heavy backpack. I turned to the green crystal that rose after the huge bear's death, deactivated Arctic Armor, and touched the crystal. It was already night outside, the cold air emanating from the frozen wasteland monolith increasing some more. I passed by the few people that were there and went towards the roads where many cars were parked. Someone quickly approached me and I got in the car, my destination now being the popular hunter lodging at the center of Outer Bank X City. Many hunters did not have a permanent residence they stayed at as they moved around a lot, so luxurious hotel businesses were started that were specifically for hunters. Most paid to stay there by the day, as the cost was nowhere near what most hunters made from killing monsters day in and day out. Almost getting my head bitten off woke me up somewhat, even though I thought I was thinking very clearly when I was planning everything. I was calling it a day for now. I'll sort through the Core S that dropped and see how much money I can make by selling them, and how many I should absorb myself. We quickly arrived at the hunter lodging called Pristine Residency. I paid the fare and went towards the entrance of the hotel. I would go back to my little apartment some other day to grab my valuables, now I just needed some rest. The Pristine Residency had a luxurious look with shining lights all around it. Being a hunter lodging, there were many services for hunters that were offered. Beside the extravagant dining with specially cooked monster meat, small shops that sold and bought Skill Book S, Item S, and Core S were also here, although they wouldn't be anywhere near as extensive as the shops in the Awakened Centers. Selling your items at Awakened Centers would usually get you more profit and you would be able to find rarer skills there. Places like the Pristine Residency were more of a business while Awakened Centers were under the government's wing. And the government never stopped buying all the items dropping from monsters in bulk. I went to the reception area where a crazily dolled up woman was flashing the sweetest smile and presented my hunter license. The smile never left her face as she quickly processed a room for me and gave me the key card. I didn't bother checking any of the shops in the huge building and went straight to the room which was on the 10th floor. All I wanted to do right now was lie down on a soft bed.